politics is not about true things, real things. It's about the shadows of the things.
Firstly, Alexander, welcome back to our studios here in Geneva. It's a pleasure to have you. And today we're going to be talking about the European Union. And there seems to be a particularly negative rhetoric from countries such as the United Kingdom, obviously with Brexit, and also in France with the upcoming French elections, and also in the US. But kind of thinking of this in another angle, what type of impact could the disintegration of the European Union have on international security?
Well, thank you very much. It's a pleasure, as always, to be here. I'm a little bit more optimistic. I do not see why we should just qualify even an important event as Brexit is as a disintegration of the European Union. I assume that though in my judgment there was something like shooting in one's foot and then pretending that it was planned exactly like that. I think that Europe has gone through a lot of transition periods and problematic periods with relapses and with the problems. It's not necessary to go very deep in history, but the Nazi story in Germany in the 20th century and many other events, they show that this progressive upscaling of the social system in Europe is going ahead with certain relapses. So I assume that we shouldn't exaggerate what has happened in Brexit, but we should draw the lessons of what has happened, because there are lots of things to be learned from that.
So do you think even if France was to vote for Marine Le Pen, the European Union would still remain strong?
Well, I would say that the results of the elections in the Netherlands gives certain hint that what has happened with Brexit is not necessarily will be widespread in Europe. I am, of course, a historian, and therefore I am not a fortune teller, and I cannot say and argue that I do not believe that Marine Le Pen can win or whatever. And especially after Trump's story in the United States, when everybody was mistaken, it would be too arrogant to say things like that. But I would say that let's not jump to the conclusions. The elections are quite soon, and I think that with Brexit, already some lessons were learned. I am thinking about that in view of the Malta meeting, which has happened just recently by the heads of states of the European Union, and the main tune, the leitmotif of this meeting, that okay, we have a big problem, but it's not the end of the story. And I think that Europe, rooted in the intellectual history of the world, and I would say it's rooted as early as the ancient Egypt, which has thrown its plants into Greece, then Greece to European civilization. It's very well rooted, and I'm a believer in Europe's future.
And kind of looking outside of the European Union, as you said, with Brexit, there was a lot of isolationist themes, particularly towards immigration, wanting to protect their borders, and that's been continued into the United States with Donald Trump winning and him trying to implement a so-called Muslim ban. Do you think this isolationist theme and kind of growing trend is a threat to international security?
I remember that George Kennan said that politics is not about true things, real things. It's about the shadows of the things, and he was right. Today we are fascinated by these shadows of the things. I mean the populism, I mean our fear of the so-called Islamic terrorism in the world. But in fact we are not raising our eyes up to look at the true monster, which is overleaning over us. And I would say that the true monster is the reconfiguration of the international order today. because the last time it was reconfigured in the 20th century, we had to pay by almost 50 million lives during the two wars, revolutions, etc., etc. Now we are going through the similar changes. I hope they will be not that painful, but to reduce everything to the induced fears, and we are driven today by the sum of the fears and not by the sum of the intellectual understanding of what's going on. Because given, you know, the fear of the so-called Islamic terrorism, I think that's wrong completely. If you will take the true figures, you will find out that out of the terrorist attacks during the maybe last 10, 15 years, Europe and the West accounts for just 0.5%. I'm not saying that the lives lost outside Europe are not equally important, but I'm just speaking about the fear in Europe. And this Islamophobia, it creates the mental drive in the people to securize their being in where they live. And it is also heated up by the media today. You know, recently I read a story which was funny if it were not that dramatic. One Russian family was traveling outside, and in one of the European airports during the connection, the guy who was sitting in the bar shouted to his wife who was passing by in the passage, and in Russian he said, "Allah," that was the name of his wife, "Allah, I'm in the bar." And in Russian it sounds, "Allah, Allah я в баре," and that looks like Allah Akbar. And he sends all the people in the bar just flat on the floor because of that. They were so scared by this Islamophobia that they confused that. So I'm saying that we should get rid of these you know, post-truth things which are saturating our existence today. And coming back to this monster, which is leaning over us, I think that we should give a lot more effort in understanding what is exactly happening to us. And Europe can play a big role in that.
Well, Alexander, thank you so much for coming in today and sharing your insight into the sort of post-truth world that we live in.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure.
That's all from myself and Alexander today. But if you like this video, there are plenty more on our website, dukascopy.tv.